Tonight, we're venturing deep into the world of Pokémon, a place where adventure, mystery, and wonder fill every corner. You'll hear stories about the origins of beloved creatures, hidden game secrets, and little-known facts that make the Pokémon universe so endlessly fascinating. As we go, I'll guide you through regions, generations, and legends, weaving together knowledge and nostalgia into a calm, relaxing journey. So get comfortable, close your eyes if you like, and let's begin our exploration. The Pokemon world began as a simple idea from Satoshi Tajiri, inspired by his childhood love of catching insects and tadpoles in rural Japan. Tajiri envisioned a game where players could collect, trade, and battle unique creatures. The Game Boy's link cable gave him the idea that Pokemon could be exchanged between players, something unheard of at the time. This concept of connectivity became a core pillar of the series, encouraging social interaction and shared exploration. In the earliest games, Pokemon designs had to work within severe hardware restrictions. Each sprite had to fit into tiny memory allocations, which meant shapes were simplified and details often exaggerated to make them recognizable. Pikachu's original chubby form wasn't just an artistic choice, its round body fit better in the limited pixel grid. As technology advanced, the design slimmed down to better reflect its speed and agility in the anime and later games. Pikachu's iconic voice, provided by Ikue Otani, has been consistent with hundreds of recorded squeaks and cries reused across media. Mew, the mysterious psychic type, was secretly added to Pokémon Red and Green's game code by programmer Shigeki Morimoto after development had essentially wrapped. He used leftover memory space to slip it in, intending it as a fun Easter egg for developers. This unexpected addition became the centerpiece of playground rumors. Stories circulated about completing obscure button combinations or battling through impossible conditions to find Mew. Most of these myths were false, but they added a layer of mystery that made the game feel alive beyond its code. Another iconic quirk of the first generation was the infamous missing no glitch. By triggering specific conditions, players could encounter a strange, blocky Pokémon that wasn't supposed to exist. Catching it often duplicated the sixth item in the player's inventory, a discovery that quickly spread as a way to obtain infinite Master Balls or rare candies. While it could corrupt the Hall of Fame data and cause visual oddities, Missing No never truly broke the game, becoming a beloved piece of Pokémon history. In the Johto region, introduced in Pokémon Gold and Silver, the world expanded dramatically. Players could explore 2 regions, encounter shiny Pokémon, and breed their own Pokémon for the first time. The shiny mechanic was born almost by accident, as developers wanted a way to indicate special Pokémon beyond just stats. With a 1 in 8,192 chance of appearing, shinies became prized trophies for dedicated trainers. Some shinies had starkly different color palettes, like the jet black Charizard, while others, such as Garchomp, looked so similar to the original that only the sparkle animation gave them away. The ruins of Alph, hidden in Johto, introduced the unknown Pokémon shaped like ancient letters and punctuation marks. Collecting them all revealed cryptic messages that hinted at a deeper lore, subtly connecting to Arceus years before the Pokémon was officially revealed. These ruins added a sense of archaeological mystery, making the world feel older and richer. In the early days, Pokémon movesets were often unbalanced. Psychic types, for example, dominated competitive play because their only real counter, the bug type, had very few strong moves. It wasn't until later generations that types like Dark and Steel were added to help balance matchups. Steel was introduced partly because the developers wanted a type that symbolized resilience and defense, which is why many Steel types, like Steelix and Scizor, have high durability. One of the most culturally significant Pokémon is Magikarp, designed as a nod to the Japanese legend of the koi fish leaping over the Dragon Gate to become a dragon. In-game, this transformation is reflected in its evolution into Gyarados, a powerful, fearsome Pokémon whose violent nature starkly contrasts with Magikarp's weakness. Gyarados was originally meant to be water, dragon type, but developers decided on water, flying to keep it balanced against electric attacks. Pokémon's global spread was accelerated by the anime, which aired internationally in the late 1990s. The anime introduced characters like Ash Ketchum, whose ongoing journey to become a Pokémon master has spanned decades. Team Rocket's antics, Meowth's ability to speak human language, and Pikachu's loyalty became iconic touchstones for fans. The anime often adapted game events, but also took creative liberties, adding personality and emotional depth to Pokémon that were otherwise just sprites in the games. As the series evolved, developers continued to hide playful nods in each installment. In later games, players noticed small details like bookshelves containing references to earlier regions or characters subtly hinting at events from past games. These touches helped make the Pokémon world feel interconnected, a living universe, rather than isolated adventures. The combination of technological innovation, imaginative design, and social gameplay ensured Pokémon's longevity. From Mew's secret coding to the legendary Missing No glitch, from shiny hunting to hidden ruins, the first generations laid the foundation for a franchise that continues to grow and surprise. And with every generation, the Pokémon world becomes just a little bigger, a little deeper, and a lot more magical. In the Hoenn region, introduced in Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire, Game Freak expanded on the series' mechanics in a way that still influences Pokémon today. This was the first generation to introduce Pokémon natures, which subtly affect how a Pokémon's stats grow. For example, an adamant nature boosts attack but lowers special attack, making it ideal for physical attackers like Blaziken, while a timid nature boosts speed but lowers attack, perfect for special sweepers like Gardevoir. Natures added a deeper layer of strategy for competitive players who wanted to optimize their teams. Hoenn also brought the concept of Pokémon abilities, passive traits that could influence battles or the overworld. For instance, Swellow's Guts ability allows it to deal extra damage when afflicted by a status condition, and Ludicolo's Rain Dish lets it heal in the rain. Abilities gave Pokémon more personality and tactical options, ensuring battles felt less predictable. These mechanics made Pokémon feel even more unique, as two of the same species could perform differently depending on their nature and ability. The Hoenn Pokédex also introduced some of the most notoriously hard-to-find Pokémon in the series. Feebas is one of the best examples in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. It only appears in 6 random water tiles along Route 119. Those tiles change when the trendy phrase in Dewford Town is altered, meaning you could fish for hours in the wrong spot without realizing it. This frustrating rarity was intentional. Developers wanted players to experience the satisfaction of discovery. Once evolved into Milotic, Feebas becomes one of the most beautiful and graceful Pokémon, inspired by koi fish and mythical sea serpents. Wobbuffet, another standout from this era, has one of the strangest movesets in the franchise. It can't learn traditional damaging moves. relying solely on Counter, Mirror Coat, Safeguard, and Destiny Bond. This was meant to encourage a unique battle style focused on prediction and patience rather than brute force. Wobbuffet's design, with its simple blue shape and bobbing movement, is based on Japanese punching bag toys called Okiagari Koboshi, which always return to an upright position when pushed. There's even a long-standing fan theory that the small black tail with two eyes is the true body and the blue head is just a decoy, a theory supported by some Pokédex descriptions. Another Hoenn Pokémon with intriguing lore is Shedinja. If you evolve a Nincada into Ninjask while having a spare Pokeball and an empty slot in your party, a Shedinja appears out of nowhere. Shedinja is the shed exoskeleton of Nincada, given life. Its Pokédex entries say it steals the spirit of anyone who peers into the hole in its back, a chilling detail for a game aimed at kids. In battle, Shedinja's Wonder Guard ability makes it immune to any move that isn't super effective. This makes it incredibly situational, but also a wild card in competitive formats. If your opponent doesn't have the right move, Shedinja becomes untouchable. Hoenn also introduced Pokémon contests, a side activity that allowed players to showcase their Pokémon's beauty, cleverness, or coolness. Moves had appeal effects in contests that were separate from their battle effects, adding another layer to how moves could be used. For example, Water Pulse could be flashy in contests while still being a reliable attack in battle. These contests reflected Game Freak's desire to make the Pokémon world feel like more than just battling. The region's mythology was deeply tied to its legendary Pokémon Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. Groudon represents land, Kyogre the sea, and Rayquaza the sky, with their battle threatening to throw Hoenn into climate chaos. This storyline made weather mechanics, like rain and sunlight, central to the plot. In fact, Ruby and Sapphire were the first games where permanent weather effects could be set in battle through abilities like drizzle and drought. This innovation transformed competitive strategies, as weather-based teams became a staple for years. The introduction of double battles, where two Pokémon face off on each side, was another game changer. It allowed for creative tactics like Earthquake, paired with a flying-type partner who wouldn't be hit, or moves like Helping Hand to boost an ally's attack. Double battles would later become the official format for most competitive Pokémon tournaments. Hoenn's design itself stood out with its emphasis on water routes and island hopping. While this drew criticism from some players for the sheer amount of surfing required, it reflected the developers' love for Japan's coastal geography. Dive, a new HM move, let players explore underwater areas for the first time, revealing hidden treasures and Pokémon like Relicanth and Clamperl. The region also hid plenty of secrets. Mirage Island, for example, could only appear on Route 130 if a random daily number matched the personality value of one of the Pokémon in your party. The odds were extremely low, making sightings rare and exciting. Inside, players could find Wild Wynaut and the extremely rare Liechii Berry, and then there were the Regis Regirock, Regis, and Registeel. Unlocking them required solving elaborate puzzles written in Braille, including one where players had to wait 2 minutes without pressing any buttons. These puzzles were a nod to the developers' desire for more mystery in games, encouraging players to work together to uncover secrets. The Braille text was even a subtle push to teach young players about accessibility. By the end of the Hoenn era, Pokémon had evolved far beyond its humble Kanto beginnings. With nature's abilities, weather systems, double battles, contests, and rich regional lore, Ruby and Sapphire set a new standard for depth and creativity in the franchise. Even the smallest details, like Mirage Island's rarity or Shedinja's eerie backstory, showed how much care was poured into making every discovery feel magical. When the Sinnoh region arrived with Pokémon Diamond and Pearl, it brought an emphasis on mythology and ancient history unlike anything seen before. The legendary Pokémon of Sinnoh, Dialga, Palkia, Giratina, and Arceus weren't just powerful creatures, they were woven into the creation story of the Pokémon universe. Dialga ruled over time, Palkia over space, and Giratina over antimatter and distortion. Arceus, known as the Original One, was said to have shaped the entire Pokémon world from nothing, giving birth to these deities to govern reality itself. This lore was presented through ruins, myths, and in-game books, creating a sense that the Pokémon world had an ancient history far older than trainers or gyms. Sinnoh also introduced the Underground, a sprawling network of tunnels beneath the region where players could dig for treasures, set up secret bases, and interact with friends in multiplayer. This feature encouraged exploration and collaboration as players traded rare fossils, evolution stones, and spheres used for decoration. Hidden in the underground was a special requirement for encountering Spiritomb. You had to talk to 32 other players before it would appear. In the pre-Wi-Fi era, this meant physically meeting up with other people who had the game, making Spiritomb one of the most social and elusive Pokémon of its time. Competitive battling changed significantly in Generation 4 due to the physical, special split. Before Diamond and Pearl, whether a move was considered physical or special was determined by its type. For example, all water-type moves were special, all normal-type moves were physical. This led to situations where Pokémon, like Gyarados, with a huge physical attack stat, couldn't fully take advantage of its stab, same-type attack bonus, water moves. The split redefined this system so each individual move had its own physical or special category, allowing for more accurate and balanced battle strategies. Sinnoh also gave players evolutions for older Pokémon that had been considered weaker in competitive play. Pokémon like Electabuzz and Magmar gained evolutions Electivire and Magmortar that gave them more powerful stat spreads and new roles in battle. Rhyperior gave Rhydon a huge defense boost, while Togekiss turned a formerly weak normal, flying Pokémon into a fairy powerhouse in later generations. Even quirky Pokémon like Yanma gained an evolution, Yanmega, becoming a much more viable option. The Pokédex, Sinnoh's high-tech watch device, served as an early example of integrating multiple utilities into one in-game gadget. It had apps for tracking friendship, counting steps for egg hatching, and even showing the time. While it might seem simple now, at the time it was a novel way to keep information easily accessible without opening menus. One of Sinnoh's more memorable quirks is its weather system, particularly the snow-covered areas like Route 217. Walking through deep snow slowed your movement, a small detail that added immersion to the region's icy climate. The snow also tied into the lore of Regigigas, a massive Pokémon said to have moved the continents and slumbered beneath the Snow Point Temple until awakened by the presence of the three Regis from Hoenn. Cynthia, Sinnoh's champion, became one of the most beloved and feared trainers in the series. Her team was balanced, her battle theme unforgettable, and her Garchomp in particular became infamous for sweeping unprepared teams. Unlike previous champions who specialized in certain themes, Cynthia felt like a true master of all types, making her battles intense and memorable. Sinnoh also introduced the Battle Frontier In Pokemon Platinum, an advanced challenge area where players could test their skills in unique battle formats. Facilities like the Battle Tower and Battle Arcade pushed players to think creatively, often placing them in situations where they had to adapt quickly with limited resources. The region's geography was inspired by the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido, with its mix of mountains, forests, and snowy plains. The developers even incorporated cultural elements like the Kanalav Library, which contained in-game books hinting at the creation myths of Pokémon. These stories didn't just describe legendary Pokémon, they hinted at humans and Pokémon once being the same species, blurring the line between the two and deepening the mystery of the world. Shiny hunting in Sinnoh became slightly more accessible thanks to the Poké Radar, a device that allowed players to chain encounters of the same Pokémon, dramatically increasing shiny odds. However, chaining required intense focus. Breaking the chain by encountering a different Pokémon or leaving the area would reset your progress, making successful hunts incredibly satisfying. Perhaps one of the most enduring aspects of Sinnoh is its music. Composed by Junichi Masuda, Hitomi Sato, and Go Ichinose, the soundtrack featured haunting piano pieces for areas like Route 209 and Snow Point City, alongside high-energy battle themes. The music helped set the tone for the region's mystical and slightly isolated atmosphere. Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum also marked the first mainline games to include Wi-Fi battles and trades, allowing trainers to connect worldwide. This was revolutionary for the franchise, expanding trading from local link cables to a global stage. The Global Trade Station, GTS, let players search for Pokémon they didn't have and offer trades without direct communication. While the system had quirks, like players requesting impossible trades for low-level legendaries, it laid the groundwork for the online connectivity that defines modern Pokémon. Sinnoh's blend of deep lore, game-changing mechanics, and world-building solidified it as a fan-favorite generation. From Arceus shaping the universe to the snow-slowed routes, from competitive overhauls to the haunting mystery of Spiritomb, it delivered both grand mythos and tiny immersive details. The Unova region, introduced in Pokémon Black and White, marked one of the boldest shifts in the franchise's history. For the first time, the Pokédex was completely reset. No older Pokémon appeared in the wild until after the main story was complete. This was a deliberate decision by Game Freak to give players the feeling of discovering a brand new world, much like they did back in the days of Pokémon Red and Blue. This meant that even seasoned trainers had to learn new type matchups, abilities, and strategies as they progressed. Unova was inspired by the New York City metropolitan area, a departure from the Japan-based regions of the past. This urban influence was clear in locations like Castelia City, a bustling hub with towering skyscrapers, and Nimbasa City, which featured an amusement park and sports domes. The setting allowed for more diverse environments, from industrial zones and freeways to wetlands and vast bridges. The Sky Arrow Bridge, in particular, was a technical showcase for the Nintendo DS, with a sweeping camera angle and 3D scaling that made it feel huge compared to earlier Pokémon routes. Black and White also delivered one of the most story-driven plots in the series. The villainous Team Plasma, led by N, claimed they wanted to liberate Pokémon from humans. This premise forced players to question the morality of Pokémon battles, something the series had never directly confronted. N himself became one of the most beloved characters in Pokémon history, thanks to his complex motivations and the emotional connection he had with Pokémon. His team even changes in every battle to reflect that he only uses Pokémon caught in the areas around him, emphasizing his closeness to nature. Mechanically, Generation V introduced some big changes. Triple battles and rotation battles debuted, adding more complexity to multi-Pokemon formats. Triple battles put 3 Pokemon on the field at once for each side, allowing for wider attack coverage, but also forcing players to think about position, as some moves could only hit adjacent foes. Rotation battles were a mix between singles and triples. You had 3 Pokemon on the field, but only one active at a time, with the ability to rotate them mid-turn. While these formats didn't become staples in competitive play, they were fresh experiments that added variety to the campaign. Another addition was the seasonal cycle. Unova's seasons changed every real-world month, affecting everything from the environment to which Pokémon appeared. Winter brought snow to certain routes, opening up new paths, while spring and summer revealed different wild Pokémon. Even small aesthetic touches, like leaves falling in autumn or snowflakes drifting in winter, made the world feel alive. Black and White also introduced animated Pokémon sprites for every creature during battle. This made battles feel more dynamic, with Pokémon constantly moving rather than sitting in static poses. The soundtrack was similarly ambitious, with tracks like the Driftvale City theme and End's Farewell standing out as some of the most memorable in the series. Certain battles even had unique musical flourishes. For example, the Gym Leader battle theme would speed up when the leader was down to their last Pokémon, adding tension. One of Unova's most memorable features was the Pokémon World Tournament in Black 2 and White 2. This post-game facility allowed players to battle gym leaders and champions from every previous region, each with updated teams and strategies. It was the ultimate nostalgia trip for longtime fans, letting them face off against legends like Brock, Misty, Cynthia, and Red all in one place. The legendary Pokémon of Unova had rich backstories. Reshiram and Zekrom represented truth and ideals, opposing forces that shaped the region's history, while Kyurem embodied the concept of absence and incompleteness. Kyurem's lore tied into the idea that it was the empty shell left when Reshiram and Zekrom split from a single original dragon, explaining its chilling, hollow appearance. The Swords of Justice Cobalion, Terrakion, Virizion, and Keldeo were inspired by the Three Musketeers, each representing a different form of justice. Hidden abilities also came into play in this generation, allowing Pokémon to have abilities not normally available to them. This shook up competitive play, as Pokémon like Politoed could now have Drizzle to summon permanent rain, enabling entirely new team archetypes. Many hidden abilities were initially available only through special events or the Dream World, an online feature where players could befriend Pokémon by playing mini-games. Speaking of the Dream World, this was a unique attempt to blend online and offline play. Players could tuck in a Pokémon to sleep, access a special website to explore dreamlike areas, and bring back items or Pokémon with rare moves. While the service eventually shut down, it remains one of the most creative online experiments the series has attempted. Unova also gave us some of the most polarizing Pokémon designs. Vanillite, a literal ice cream cone, and Trubbish, a garbage bag Pokémon, sparked debates among fans. However, these designs followed a tradition in Pokémon of turning mundane objects into imaginative creatures, just as earlier generations did with Magnemite or Voltorb. Over time, many of these controversial Pokémon gained their own fan bases, especially in competitive play, where their unique typings and movesets shined. By the time players reached the climax of Black and White, they weren't just battling for badges, they were unraveling a complex web of ideals, truths, and moral dilemmas. The finale, where the Pokemon League is interrupted by N and Getsus, and the subsequent legendary Pokemon Showdown, remains one of the most dramatic endings in Pokemon history. With its bold Pokédex reset, seasonal changes, animated sprites, and one of the deepest stories in the series, Unova proved that Pokemon could still reinvent itself over a decade after its debut. It blended fresh mechanics with a willingness to question the core ideas of the Pokemon world, making it one of the most memorable generations for both casual players and competitive veterans alike. The Kalos region, introduced in Pokemon X and Y, marked a major leap forward in the series thanks to the jump to full 3D models for both Pokemon and environments. After years of sprite-based visuals, seeing Pokemon rendered in smooth, detailed animations brought battles to life in a whole new way. The Nintendo 3DS hardware allowed for dynamic camera angles, battle scenes that felt more cinematic, and more expressive character models during dialogue. This visual upgrade made Kalos stand out instantly, and it set the template for all future mainline games. Kalos was heavily inspired by France, from its architecture and cuisine to its fashion sense. Lumiose City, the region's central hub, was modeled after Paris, complete with a massive tower resembling the Eiffel Tower, Prism Tower, serving as both a landmark and the home of an electric-type gym. Streets were lined with cafes, flower shops, and boutiques, emphasizing the region's theme of beauty and elegance. This aesthetic was reinforced by the introduction of character customization, allowing players to change clothing, hairstyles, and accessories for the first time in the series. One of the most significant gameplay additions in Generation VI was the introduction of the Fairy type. This new type was designed to balance the dominance of Dragon types, which had few weaknesses in previous generations. Pokémon like Gardevoir, Mawile, and Azumarill gained the Fairy typing, while entirely new Pokémon like Sylveon showcased the type's charm. Fairy moves were super effective against dragons, adding a new layer of strategy to both in-game battles and competitive play. Mega Evolution was another headline feature. Select Pokémon could temporarily evolve into a more powerful form during battle, gaining stat boosts, new abilities, and sometimes even type changes. For example, Mega Charizard had two forms. Mega Charizard X gained the Dragon type and a striking black and blue design, while Mega Charizard Y kept its fire-flying typing but dramatically boosted its special attack. Mega Evolutions revitalized older Pokémon, giving them new roles and making them relevant in competitive formats again. The Kalos storyline focused on themes of beauty, life, and destruction, represented by the legendary trio Xerneas, the life Pokémon, Yveltal, the destruction Pokémon, and Zygarde, the order Pokémon. These three embodied the cycle of creation, death, and balance. Drawing inspiration from Norse mythology, the main plot also tied into the ancient War of Kalos, where a king named AZ built the ultimate weapon, a machine capable of reviving the dead, but also causing massive destruction. AZ's story, revealed through quiet, somber cutscenes, was one of the most emotional narratives in the series, especially when he finally reunited with his long-lost Floette. Kalos introduced horde battles, where players could face 5 wild Pokémon at once. While this could be overwhelming, It also became a popular shiny hunting method, as encountering multiple Pokémon at a time increased odds of finding a shiny. Sky battles were another new feature, limited to flying types and Pokémon with the levitate ability, although they were less universally loved due to their restrictions. The region also emphasized social features. The player search system, PSS, streamlined online trading and battling, while Wonder Trade allowed players to instantly trade Pokémon with random people around the world, often leading to fun surprises or unexpected gifts. This feature became an addictive side activity for many players. Another major addition was Super Training, a mini-game based method of improving a Pokemon's stats, effort values, or EVs. This made competitive training far more accessible, eliminating the need for repetitive battles to raise specific stats. Pokemon Amy, a virtual pet style feature, let players interact with their Pokemon directly, feeding them Pokepuffs, petting them, and playing games to build affection. High affection could result in battle benefits, such as surviving hits with 1 HP or breaking out of status conditions more easily. Kalos also had its share of rare and elusive Pokemon. The elusive Inkay required players to physically turn their 3DS upside down during level up to evolve it into Malamar, a playful use of the console's motion sensors. The enigmatic Volcarona appeared as a post-game challenge in the wild, reinforcing its status as a special Pokemon. Certain Mega Stones were only available at specific times of day, encouraging players to explore at different hours. One of the most memorable post-game additions was the Looker Bureau side quest, where players teamed up with Looker, a recurring detective character in the series, to solve mysteries around Lumiose City. This quest added a noir-style narrative that was unlike anything else in the Pokemon world at the time. While Kalos lacked the extensive post-game of some earlier regions, its innovations from fairy types and mega evolutions to customization and 3D visuals made it a landmark generation. It successfully merged elegance with gameplay depth, leaving an enduring impact on both casual players and competitive battlers. The Alola region, introduced in Pokémon Sun and Moon, was one of the boldest shakeups to the traditional Pokémon formula since the franchise began. Instead of following the familiar path of collecting 8 gym badges and challenging the Pokémon League, players in Alola embarked on the Island Challenge, a journey across 4 islands, completing trials hosted by captains, and ultimately facing each island's kahuna in a grand trial. This approach was meant to reflect the real-world inspiration for Alola, the Hawaiian Islands, where local culture and traditions are celebrated. Alola's setting was rich with tropical charm. Palm-lined beaches, dense jungles, volcanic peaks, and coral reefs made the world feel alive with biodiversity. The region was filled with Pokémon adapted to its climate, including brand new species and unique regional variants of older Pokémon. These Alolan forms were designed to show how species evolve differently in distinct environments. For example, Alolan Vulpix adapted to snowy mountaintops, becoming an ice type, while Alolan Raichu became an electric, psychic type, surfing on its tail thanks to the region's abundant sunlight and relaxed lifestyle. The storyline in Sun and Moon placed a stronger emphasis on character relationships and personal growth. Lily, the shy companion who traveled with you, had her own arc involving her mysterious Pokémon companion, Nebby, Cosmog, and her controlling mother, Lusamine. Lusamine herself was one of the more complex antagonists in Pokémon history, outwardly elegant and charitable, but inwardly obsessed with beauty and control, willing to endanger others for her goals. The main threat in Alola came from the Ultra Beasts, bizarre creatures from another dimension that didn't follow normal Pokemon rules. These beings, such as Nihilego and Buzzwole, had alien designs and unusual typing combinations, making their encounters feel unsettling compared to traditional legendary Pokemon. The Ultra Wormholes that led to their world became a central part of the post-game, allowing players to travel and catch multiple legendaries from past generations. Alola also introduced Z-moves, powerful, one-time per battle attacks that required a Pokemon to hold the corresponding Z crystal. Each type had its own Z-move, and certain Pokemon had exclusive ones, like Pikachu's 10, 0, Gyrovolt Thunderbolt, or Snorlax's Pulverizing Pancake. Z-moves added spectacle to battles, with over-the-top animations and dramatic camera angles. Totem Pokemon were another new twist, acting as trial bosses. These oversized, stronger than normal Pokemon had boosted stats and called in allies to fight alongside them, creating 2-on-1 scenarios. For example, the Totem Wishiwashi in its school form could be a surprisingly tough battle early in the game. Alola's design embraced a more open, natural flow, with fewer strict routes and more areas that felt connected organically. Wild Pokemon could now call for help mid-battle, introducing the SOS mechanic. This made shiny hunting more dynamic, as repeated SOS calls could increase shiny odds, but it also made certain battles unexpectedly challenging if opponents kept summoning allies. The games were deeply infused with Hawaiian cultural elements. The greetings, clothing, music, and architecture all reflected the warm, communal spirit of the islands. Even the concept of kahunas and island guardians, like Tapu Koko and Tapu Lele, drew inspiration from Polynesian mythology. Each guardian had its own personality and role in protecting its island, further grounding the region in a sense of living culture. Pokémon Sun and Moon also featured the most cinematic presentation the series had seen up to that point. Cutscenes had dynamic camera work, and story events were more elaborate than ever, with set pieces like riding a Sharpedo through coral reefs or battling atop the altar of the Sun and Moon. The removal of the traditional HM system, replaced with the Poke Ride service, was a major quality of life improvement. Instead of teaching moves like surf or fly to your Pokemon, you could simply summon a ride, Pokemon like Tauros, Charizard, or Machamp to help you traverse obstacles. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon expanded on the base games with new Ultra Beasts, additional story events, and a more fleshed out post-game in the form of the Ultra Warp Ride. These enhanced versions also introduced the Rainbow Rocket episode, where villains from every past generation, including Giovanni from Kanto, Cyrus from Sinnoh, and Lysandre from Kalos, teamed up in a multiverse plot, giving longtime fans a crossover of epic proportions. Alola's approach to pacing and storytelling wasn't without controversy. Some players found the cutscene frequency too high, but it succeeded in making the region feel personal and vibrant. The strong focus on character-driven storytelling, regional identity, and mechanical innovation cemented Alola as a generation that dared to break tradition while celebrating the heart of Pokémon. The bond between trainer and Pokémon, the Galar region, introduced in Pokémon Sword and Shield, represented Pokémon's first mainline entry on a home console rather than a handheld. Inspired by the United Kingdom, Galar combined rolling green countrysides, historic castles, industrial cities, and snow-covered highlands into one interconnected map. The developers aimed to capture the feel of British culture and geography, weaving in references to football, soccer, tea culture, and old world charm. One of Galar's most significant innovations was the introduction of the Wild Area, a vast, open world space where players could freely control the camera, encounter Pokémon wandering in the overworld, and battle or catch them without being restricted to fixed patches of grass. The wild area featured dynamic weather that changed daily, affecting which Pokémon appeared. For example, you might see Steelix on a clear day, then Gengar emerging during heavy fog. This constantly shifting ecosystem made the wild area a hotspot for exploration and farming rare Pokémon. Sword and Shield also introduced Dynamaxing and its variant, Gigantamaxing. Dynamaxing allowed Pokémon to grow to colossal size for 3 turns, dramatically boosting their stats and replacing their moves with powerful max moves. Gigantamax Pokémon not only grew larger, but also gained unique forms and special moves. For example, Gigantamax Pikachu had a chubbier retro-inspired design reminiscent of its Generation I sprite, while Gigantamax Charizard sprouted massive flaming wings. These mechanics were central to Galar's gym battles, with massive stadiums filled with roaring crowds, simulating the atmosphere of professional sports events. The gym challenge in Galar was presented as a grand sporting tournament. Gym leaders had public personas, uniforms, and fans, creating a celebrity culture around them. This made every gym battle feel like a major event, complete with announcers and cheering audiences. Each gym also had its own puzzle or challenge, from herding Wooloo into pins to navigating a water pipe system. The legendary Pokémon of Galarzation, Zamazenta, and Eternatus were central to the main story. Zacian and Zamazenta were portrayed as noble warrior Pokémon, wielding a sword and shield respectively, while Eternatus was a massive, alien-like dragon responsible for the Dynamax phenomenon. The climax of the story involved teaming up with your rival and the legendary dogs to stop Eternatus from causing the Darkest Day, a cataclysmic event tied to Galar's ancient history. Sword and Shield introduced the Pokémon Camp feature, allowing players to set up camp anywhere in the overworld, cook curry for their Pokémon, and play games to increase friendship. Curry making became its own light-hearted mini-game, with over 100 varieties to collect in a curry dex. The camp system added a cozy, personal element to the journey, letting players interact with their Pokémon in more intimate ways. Galar's Pokédex sparked controversy before the games even released. For the first time in mainline history, not every existing Pokémon was available in the game, leading to what fans called Dexit. While Game Freak explained that the change was due to development constraints and the need to focus on quality animations, the decision caused debate within the community. Despite this, Sword and Shield went on to become one of the best-selling Pokémon games ever. Another major addition came in the form of max raid battles, cooperative multiplayer encounters, where up to 4 players faced a Dynamax or Gigantamax Pokémon. These battles encouraged teamwork and offered rare rewards, from high IV Pokémon to valuable items like bottle caps and ability capsules. The thrill of facing an enormous Pokémon with friends became one of the most addictive parts of the game, and it encouraged online play more than any previous generation. Galar's competitive scene was also reshaped by its mechanics. Dynamaxing opened up new strategies, such as using Max Airstream to boost speed across your team, or Max Guard to stall an opponent's Dynamax turns. However, Some competitive formats banned Dynamaxing entirely due to how much it disrupted traditional balance. The Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra expansions, introduced via DLC, replaced the traditional third version approach. Isle of Armor focused on training with Mustard, a retired champion, and featured Kubfu, which could evolve into one of two forms of Urshifu depending on the player's choices. Crown Tundra emphasized exploration and legendary hunting, introducing the Galarian Star Tournament and a massive roster of returning legendary Pokémon to catch. The Crown Tundra also brought back a fan-favorite challenge, Dynamax Adventures. In these gauntlets, players used rental Pokémon to battle through a series of Dynamax opponents, culminating in a fight against a legendary Pokémon. Every legendary from past games was available here, making it one of the most rewarding post-game activities in Pokémon history. Galarian forms gave new life to familiar Pokémon such as Galarian Ponyta with its pastel mane, Galarian Weezing sporting smokestack top hats, and Galarian Darumaka switching from fire to ice typing. These designs were often playful nods to British culture and history, blending regional flavor with creative reimaginings. By the end of Sword and Shield, Galar had proven itself as a generation of bold changes, from the wild area's open exploration to stadium-scale gym battles and cooperative raid content. While it wasn't without controversy, its innovations reshaped how players interacted with the Pokémon world, blending tradition with modern multiplayer experiences. The Paldea region, introduced in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, marked the series' first fully open-world mainline games. Instead of following a set route from gym to gym, players could explore the region in any order they wished, tackling objectives at their own pace. This non-linear structure represented a huge departure from the traditional Pokémon formula, offering a freedom that many fans had been dreaming of for years. Paldea was inspired by the Iberian Peninsula, encompassing the cultures and landscapes of Spain and Portugal. Its world was filled with sun-soaked plains, rolling vineyards, ancient castles, windmills, and bustling towns. Each area had its own distinct atmosphere, from the frigid Glaciado Mountain to the rocky Asado Desert, making exploration feel fresh no matter where you traveled. The architecture and music reflected real-world influences, incorporating Spanish guitar melodies, Moorish-style arches, and colorful tilework. Instead of being limited to on-foot exploration, players traveled alongside one of the legendary Pokémon Koraidon in Scarlet or Miraidon in Violet from the very start of their journey. These Pokémon acted as both companions and mounts, capable of running, swimming, gliding, and climbing as the player unlocked their abilities through story progression. This made traversal feel more dynamic and personal, as your legendary was with you from the first moments, rather than being a post-game reward. Paldea's story was divided into three main quest lines that could be pursued in any order: Victory Road, the traditional gym challenge; Path of Legends, which involved hunting down Titan Pokémon with the help of Arven to find the mysterious Herba Mystica; and Starfall Street, where players infiltrated bases of Team Star, a rebellious group of students with their own misunderstood motives. This branching structure allowed players to immerse themselves in the storylines they found most engaging, with all three converging in a powerful, emotional finale. The new battle mechanic of this generation was terastallization, the ability for a Pokémon to take on a crystalline form and gain a Terra type. Different, leading to unexpected strategies. For example, a water-type Gyarados could terastallize into an electric type to counter its own weakness, while a ghost-type Terra Dragonite could unleash stab dragon moves without worrying about fairy-type resistance until after terastallization ended. The crystal effect, complete with a sparkling crown representing the Terra type, added visual flair to battles. One of Paldea's most talked about features was the sheer variety of wild Pokémon visible in the overworld. There were no random encounters. Instead, Pokémon roamed freely in herds, perched on cliffs, or swam in rivers. This made the world feel alive, as you might spot a rare spawn in the distance and sprint toward it before it vanished. Mass outbreaks returned from Legends Arceus, giving players a higher chance of encountering shiny Pokémon in large clusters. Paldea introduced over 100 new Pokémon, including fan favorites like the adorable Lechonk, the mischievous Tinkaton wielding a giant hammer, and the paradox Pokémon ancient or futuristic variants of existing species, depending on your game version. These paradox forms offered striking design changes, such as Great Tusk, a prehistoric Donphan with massive tusks, or Iron Valiant, a futuristic fusion of Gardevoir and Gallade. Their lore hinted at time travel and scientific mystery, which became central to the game's late story twists. Perhaps the most praised element of Scarlet and Violet was Area Zero, the hidden heart of Paldea. This massive crater contained lush alien landscapes and rare Pokémon, serving as both a gameplay challenge and a narrative climax. The final missions in Area Zero combined the three main storylines, bringing together characters you'd grown to know: Arven, Nemona, and Penny for an emotional conclusion. The true antagonist wasn't a traditional villain, but an AI version of the player's professor, desperately trying to preserve their creator's dream, even if it endangered the present. While Paldea's ambition was impressive, Scarlet and Violet launched with noticeable performance issues, including frame drops, texture pop-ins, and occasional glitches. Despite this, the games received praise for their heart, storytelling, and willingness to push the series forward. Players formed strong attachments to the characters, especially Arven, whose personal arc about family and loss resonated deeply. Multiplayer exploration was another breakthrough for the first time. Up to 4 players could roam the open world together, catching Pokémon, battling, and simply exploring. This feature, combined with online Terra Raid battles against powerful terastallized Pokémon, added longevity and community engagement. The games also hosted limited-time events, such as special 7-star Terra Raids, featuring rare or event-exclusive Pokémon like Charizard with a unique Terra type. These events encouraged cooperative play and kept players returning after finishing the main story. Paldea wasn't just about mechanical changes. It captured the essence of adventure in a way few Pokémon games had before. The freedom to explore, the thrill of spotting a rare wild Pokémon, the layered storytelling, and the emotional ending all contributed to making Scarlet and Violet some of the most memorable entries in the franchise's modern history. The Paldea region, introduced in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, marked the series' first fully open-world mainline games. Instead of following a set route from gym to gym, players could explore the region in any order they wished, tackling objectives at their own pace. This non-linear structure represented a huge departure from the traditional Pokémon formula, offering a freedom that many fans had been dreaming of for years. Paldea was inspired by the Iberian Peninsula, encompassing the cultures and landscapes of Spain and Portugal. Its world was filled with sun-soaked plains, rolling vineyards, ancient castles, windmills, and bustling towns. Each area had its own distinct atmosphere, from the frigid Glaciado Mountain to the rocky Asado Desert, making exploration feel fresh no matter where you traveled. The architecture and music reflected real-world influences, incorporating Spanish guitar melodies, Moorish-style arches, and colorful tilework. Instead of being limited to on-foot exploration, players traveled alongside one of the legendary Pokémon Koraidon in Scarlet or Miraidon in Violet from the very start of their journey. These Pokémon acted as both companions and mounts, capable of running, swimming, gliding, and climbing as the player unlocked their abilities through story progression. This made traversal feel more dynamic and personal, as your legendary was with you from the first moments, rather than being a post-game reward. Paldea's story was divided into 3 main quest lines that could be pursued in any order: Victory Road, the traditional gym challenge; Path of Legends, which involved hunting down Titan Pokémon with the help of Arven to find the mysterious Herba Mystica; and Starfall Street, where players infiltrated bases of Team Star, a rebellious group of students with their own misunderstood motives. This branching structure allowed players to immerse themselves in the storylines they found most engaging, with all 3 converging in a powerful, emotional finale. The new battle mechanic of this generation was terastallization, the ability for a Pokémon to take on a crystalline form and gain a Terra type. Different, leading to unexpected strategies. For example, a water-type Gyarados could terastallize into an electric type to counter its own weakness, while a ghost-type Terra Dragonite could unleash stab dragon moves without worrying about fairy-type resistance until after terastallization ended. The crystal effect, complete with a sparkling crown representing the Terra type, added visual flair to battles. One of Paldea's most talked about features was the sheer variety of wild Pokémon visible in the overworld. There were no random encounters. Instead, Pokémon roamed freely in herds, perched on cliffs, or swam in rivers. This made the world feel alive, as you might spot a rare spawn in the distance and sprint toward it before it vanished. Mass outbreaks returned from Legends, Arceus, giving players a higher chance of encountering shiny Pokémon in large clusters. Paldea introduced over 100 new Pokémon, including fan favorites like the adorable Lechonk, the mischievous Tinkaton wielding a giant hammer, and the paradox Pokémon ancient or futuristic variants of existing species, depending on your game version. These paradox forms offered striking design changes, such as Great Tusk, a prehistoric Donphan with massive tusks, or Iron Valiant, a futuristic fusion of Gardevoir and Gallade. Their lore hinted at time travel and scientific mystery, which became central to the game's late story twists. Perhaps the most praised element of Scarlet and Violet was Area Zero, the hidden heart of Paldea. This massive crater contained lush alien landscapes and rare Pokémon, serving as both a gameplay challenge and a narrative climax. The final missions in Area Zero combined the 3 main storylines, bringing together characters you'd grown to know: Arven, Nemona, and Penny for an emotional conclusion. The true antagonist wasn't a traditional villain, but an AI version of the player's professor, desperately trying to preserve their creator's dream, even if it endangered the present. While Paldea's ambition was impressive, Scarlet and Violet launched with noticeable performance issues, including frame drops, texture pop-ins, and occasional glitches. Despite this, the games received praise for their heart, storytelling, and willingness to push the series forward. Players formed strong attachments to the characters, especially Arvin, whose personal arc about family and loss resonated deeply. Multiplayer exploration was another breakthrough for the first time. Up to 4 players could roam the open world together, catching Pokémon, battling, and simply exploring. This feature, combined with online Terra Raid battles against powerful terrestrialized Pokémon, added longevity and community engagement. The games also hosted limited-time events, such as special 7-star Terra Raids, featuring rare or event-exclusive Pokémon like Charizard with a unique Terra type. These events encouraged cooperative play and kept players returning after finishing the main story. Paldea wasn't just about mechanical changes. It captured the essence of adventure in a way few Pokémon games had before. The freedom to explore, the thrill of spotting a rare wild Pokémon, the layered storytelling, and the emotional ending all contributed to making Scarlet and Violet some of the most memorable entries in the franchise's modern history. Pokémon games have always been full of secrets, some intentional Easter eggs planted by developers, others the result of glitches and quirks in the game code. These oddities have fascinated players for decades, turning schoolyard rumors into legends and making the games feel deeper than what's visible on the surface. One of the earliest and most famous glitches is Missing No in Pokémon Red and Blue. Triggered by a specific set of steps involving the old man in Viridian City and surfing along Cinnabar Island's coast, Missing No, Missing Number would appear as a scrambled sprite. Defeating or catching it would duplicate the 6th item in your bag, making it a favorite trick for infinite rare candies or master balls. While it could cause minor graphical bugs, Missing No became a cherished piece of Pokémon history, proving that even mistakes could become part of the franchise's lore. Another well-known glitch in the same games is the Mew glitch. Using a series of menu manipulations and trainer sightline exploits, players could force a wild Mew encounter without external devices. This discovery decades later thrilled fans as it gave them a legitimate way to catch a Pokémon once thought to be event exclusive. In Pokémon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, there was a time-based glitch involving the in-game clock. Because of a programming oversight in the way the clock handled leap years, the berry-growing system stopped functioning correctly after a certain date, forcing players to use a time reset feature in Crystal. This was a reminder of how even seemingly small systems could have unexpected consequences years later. Generation 2 also hid one of the rarest encounters in Pokémon history, the Shiny Ditto glitch through breeding. Since shininess was determined by specific values in a Pokémon's data, breeding with a Shiny Ditto guaranteed a higher chance for shiny offspring. While shiny odds were still incredibly low, 1 in 8, 192, this method was revolutionary for dedicated hunters. Pokémon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald featured a strange phenomenon known as Mirage Island. This hidden area would only appear if a random daily number matched the personality value of one of the Pokémon in your party. The odds of this happening were astronomically low, making Mirage Island sightings a badge of honor. Inside, players could find Wild Wynot and the rare Leaky Berry, which boosted attack in battle. In the same games, the cloning glitch in Emerald allowed players to duplicate Pokémon and items by timing a save and reset at the Battle Tower's PC. This was a double-edged sword, incredibly useful for duplicating valuable items like Master Balls, but risky if mistimed. Generation 4 introduced the Surf on Land glitch in Diamond and Pearl, letting players access areas they weren't supposed to by exploiting the way Surf and the bicycle interacted. This glitch was famously used in speedruns to skip huge portions of the game. Platinum fixed most of these exploits, but new glitches inevitably emerged. Heart Gold and Soul Silver featured a hidden Easter egg in the Pokewalker, the pedometer device bundled with the games. If players connected it to a friend's Pokewalker, there was a small chance of receiving a special route containing rare Pokemon, including some that were otherwise unobtainable without events. Pokemon Black and White had an unused Godstone in the game's data, a mysterious item with no official explanation. Fans speculated it might have been part of an alternate plot involving Kyurem, but it remains unused and unexplained to this day. Generation V also introduced the shaking grass, rustling dust, and rippling water mechanic, which made rare Pokemon appear in specific tiles. This system allowed players to find Pokemon like Odino, which became a popular choice for grinding experience thanks to its high XP yield. In X and Y, there's a famous Ghost Girl Easter egg in Lumiose City. If the player visits the second floor of a specific building, the screen flickers and a girl silently appears behind you, saying, "No, you're not the one," before vanishing. She serves no gameplay purpose and has no official explanation, sparking endless fan theories. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire brought back Mirage spots, which worked like Mirage Island but appeared randomly across Hoenn, containing rare items and legendary Pokemon. Players could manipulate these spawns by street passing with others, creating a social aspect to rare location hunting. Sun and Moon included the photobombing Pikachu Easter egg. In certain backgrounds while using the Poke Finder, a Pikachu could be spotted in the distance, waving at the player. Catching these moments became a lighthearted side activity. Sword and Shield hid subtle visual details, like the clocks in certain houses stopping at specific times, a reference to Generation 2's time glitch. In the wild area, some weather patterns could trigger spawns of rare Pokemon with perfect IVs, creating hunting opportunities for competitive players. Even Scarlet and Violet, despite their open-world focus, contain curious secrets. Certain Terra Raid dens have a minuscule chance to contain Pokemon with shiny locked forms, meaning they appear with their shiny coloration, but can't be caught, a frustrating but tantalizing discovery for shiny hunters. The games also feature hidden interactions, like wild Tinkaton occasionally being found surrounded by fainted Corviknight, implying they've been using their massive hammers to hunt them as described in their Pokédex entries. These glitches, secrets, and Easter eggs remind players that Pokémon is more than just a polished adventure. It's a living, evolving world full of oddities waiting to be uncovered. Whether intentional or accidental, these discoveries add depth and unpredictability, ensuring that even decades-old games can still surprise their players. From the very beginning, many Pokemon designs have been inspired by real-world myths, legends, and folklore, blending cultural history with imaginative fantasy. This approach has helped the franchise create creatures that feel both familiar and otherworldly, grounding them in concepts that resonate across generations and regions. One of the earliest and most famous examples is Ninetales, whose design is based on the Japanese kitsune, a fox spirit from Shinto and folklore. Kitsune are said to grow additional tails as they age and gain wisdom, with the most powerful possessing 9 tails and incredible magical abilities. Much like in myth, Ninetales is depicted as long-lived and capable of casting curses on those who mistreat it. Similarly, Gengar draws from the concept of the doppelganger and the Japanese shadow spirit, Its mischievous grin and ghostly nature are tied to the idea of a spirit that mimics and haunts people. Some fans even believe Gengar is the literal shadow of Clefable, a theory supported by their similar body shapes and matching silhouettes. Magikarp and Gyarados take inspiration from a Chinese legend about a koi fish that perseveres to swim upstream and leap over the Dragon Gate waterfall, transforming into a mighty dragon. This story of perseverance mirrors Magikarp's in-game evolution from one of the weakest Pokémon into one of the fiercest. Ho-Oh, introduced in Generation 2, is inspired by the Fenghuang, the Chinese phoenix. In mythology, the phoenix is a symbol of rebirth and good fortune, said to appear only in peaceful times. Ho-Oh's Pokédex entries describe it as reviving the dead and bringing happiness to those who see it, reflecting the benevolent nature of its mythological counterpart. Lugia has ties to several legends. While often seen as a guardian of the seas, its design bears similarities to the Ryujin, a dragon god of the ocean in Japanese mythology. Interestingly, Lugia was originally created by the Pokémon anime staff for the second movie and later incorporated into the games, a rare case of the anime influencing the core series. The legendary beasts Entei, Raikou, and Suicune are tied to Japanese folklore about guardian spirits and natural disasters. Entei represents volcanic eruptions, Raikou embodies thunder, and Suicune symbolizes flowing water and purity. Their resurrection by Ho-Oh also parallels myths of divine intervention. Jirachi is inspired by the tradition of writing wishes on paper strips during the Tanabata festival in Japan. These strips are tied to bamboo branches in hopes that the wishes will come true. In-game, Jirachi awakens for 7 days every 1,000 years to grant wishes, tying directly to this cultural event. Absol takes after the Japanese Baizi and the Chinese Hakutaku, mythical creatures said to warn people of impending disasters. Despite being feared as a harbinger of doom in Pokémon lore, Absol is actually benevolent, only appearing to alert people of danger. The Regi trio and Regigigas in Hoenn and Sinnoh pull from various ancient constructs and myths. Regirock, Regis, and Registeel evoke the golems of Jewish folklore beings created from inanimate matter and given life through mystical means. Regigigas's lore about pulling continents into place hints at myths of giant titans shaping the earth. In Sinnoh, Giratina draws from the biblical concept of a fallen angel banished to the distortion world for its violent nature. Its serpentine form and shadowy wings also connect to imagery of apocalyptic beasts. Yamask, a ghost type from Unova, has one of the darkest mythological ties in Pokémon. It carries a mask said to represent its human face from when it was alive, and it sometimes cries when looking at it. This connects to Egyptian death masks and the belief in souls lingering after death. Its evolution, Cofagrigus, resembles an ancient sarcophagus, complete with ghostly arms that pull in those who get too close. Volcarona, also from Unova, is inspired by the myth of the sun being saved during a time of darkness. In its Pokédex entries, it's said to have replaced the sun when volcanic ash filled the skies, a concept reminiscent of fire deities in several cultures. From Kalos, Xerneas is tied to the Norse myth of Eikthyr, a stag whose antlers drip water that nourishes the rivers of the world, symbolizing life. Its counterpart, Yveltal, is based on the Norse eagle associated with death and the end of life. Zygarde, the third member of the trio, represents order and balance, paralleling the Norse world serpent Jormungandr, which encircles the world. Alola's Tapu Quartet, Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Tapu Bulu, and Tapu Fini are rooted in Polynesian guardian spirit myths. Each protects its own island and has distinct traits tied to natural elements like war, healing, vegetation, and the ocean. Their designs mix animal forms with tribal mask motifs, emphasizing their cultural roots. Dragapult from Galar references both modern and ancient influences. Its head resembles a stealth bomber, but its ghost, dragon typing, and spectral, missile dreepy, it launches tie into the idea of ancient spirits still lingering in the modern age. In Paldea, the ruinous quartet, Woqian, Qianpao, Ting Lu, and Qi Yu are inspired by Chinese mythological curses. Each is bound to a dark relic, and their Pokédex entries describe how these cursed items brought disaster when removed from their resting places. These mythological influences give Pokémon a sense of depth that goes beyond their gameplay function. By drawing from legends across the world, the franchise connects players to universal themes of heroism, mystery, transformation, and the forces of nature, ensuring that each new generation still feels rooted in something timeless. The Pokédex is often seen as a light-hearted encyclopedia for trainers, but many entries reveal strange, eerie, or outright unsettling details about the Pokémon world. While the games maintain a friendly exterior, reading between the lines of the Pokédex shows that this universe can be far darker than it appears. One of the most infamous examples is Drifloon. At first glance, it's a harmless ghost, flying balloon Pokémon that children might find cute. But multiple Pokédex entries state that Drifloon tries to grab the hands of children and spirit them away to the afterlife. In some cases, it's said to disappear into the sky with its victims, never to return. While in-game it's just another catchable Pokémon, its lore paints it as something out of a ghost story. Hypno also carries disturbing implications. According to its entries, Hypno uses its pendulum to hypnotize prey, often lulling them to sleep so it can feed on their dreams. One entry even tells of a Hypno leading a child away from home and parents needing to be on alert. This predator-like behavior gives Hypno one of the darkest reputations among psychic Pokémon. Banette takes the concept of a cursed doll to an unsettling extreme. Said to be born when a child's favorite plush toy was abandoned, Banette roams the world seeking revenge on the one who discarded it. It's driven purely by hatred, using its zipper-like mouth to channel curses. The implication that ordinary toys can become vengeful spirits adds a horror element to the Pokémon world. Yamask is another ghostly Pokémon with deeply tragic lore. Each Yamask carries a mask that represents the face it had when it was human. They sometimes weep when looking at it, suggesting they retain full memories of their previous lives. This isn't just a vague spirit, it's a literal human soul trapped in a Pokémon body. Its evolution, Cofagrigus, compounds the horror by luring in and trapping grave robbers inside its sarcophagus-like shell. In Alola, Beware became infamous for its deceptively cuddly appearance. According to the Pokédex, it has a habit of giving tight hugs to those it likes, tight enough to shatter bones without realizing it. Locals are warned to keep their distance, making it one of the most unintentionally dangerous Pokémon in the series. Gengar has long been portrayed as mischievous, but some entries frame it in a more sinister light. It's said that Gengar emerges from shadows to stalk humans, occasionally imitating their movements before striking. In one entry, Gengar's body temperature is described as dropping suddenly, suggesting it drains heat from its surroundings, a ghostly predator hiding in plain sight. Phantump, a small ghost grass Pokemon, has one of the most unsettling origin stories. It's said to be the spirit of a child who died in the forest, now possessing a tree stump. These lonely spirits call out to travelers, leading them deeper into the woods. While its design is cute, the backstory is pure folklore tragedy. Duskull takes a more skeletal approach to haunting. It's known for following children who stay up past their bedtime, sometimes for days on end, passing straight through walls as it stalks them. The imagery evokes traditional Grim Reaper myths, with Duskull playing the role of a silent, patient harbinger. In Sinnoh, Frostlass is said to be the spirit of a woman who perished in the mountains. She freezes men with her icy breath and keeps their bodies as decorations, a chilling nod to Japanese Yuki Onna legends. Her elegance and beauty mask a predatory nature. Some Pokédex entries border on cosmic horror. Kyogre is described as having expanded the seas themselves, capable of creating massive storms and tsunamis that reshape continents. Giratina, banished to the distortion world for its violence, watches silently from an alternate dimension, an eternal, unseen presence. These descriptions elevate certain legendary Pokemon from mere bosses to forces of nature or gods in their own right. Parasect, an unassuming bug, grass type, hides a disturbing truth. Its Pokédex entries reveal that the parasitic mushroom on its back has completely taken over the host's body, controlling its every move. In the anime, Parasect's blank eyes and slow movements emphasize that the insect underneath is no longer truly alive. Even the otherwise friendly Wailord has strange implications. While its size is a wonder, some entries describe how entire schools of Remoraid travel with it, and in certain regions, people use Wailord's immense body as a living ship. The idea of human activity relying so heavily on a living creature hints at a more utilitarian and potentially exploitative side to the Pokemon world. Scarlet and Violet continued the tradition of unsettling details. Tinkaton's Pokédex entries reveal that it hunts Corviknight specifically to use parts of their bodies for crafting its massive hammer, explaining why Corviknight no longer serve as taxi Pokemon in Paldea. Veluza, a fish Pokemon, is described as shedding parts of its own body to increase its speed when attacking prey, a grotesque survival adaptation. These entries paint the Pokemon world as a place where danger and beauty coexist, where even the most adorable creatures might hide lethal traits or tragic histories. It's a reminder that beneath the bright colors and cheerful battles lies a universe with its own natural order, one that isn't always kind, and one where humans live alongside forces they don't fully control. As we've journeyed through these facts, from the earliest legends to the strangest modern discoveries, one truth becomes clear. The Pokemon world is far more complex, mysterious, and alive than it may first appear. Behind every sprite, every cry, and every battle mechanic lies a story sometimes wondrous, sometimes tragic, sometimes strange enough to blur the line between game and myth. Whether you're drawn to the thrill of the hunt for rare shinies, the depth of the lore connecting regions, or the quiet, eerie mysteries tucked away in Pokédex entries, the world of Pokemon is endless in its ability to surprise and captivate. So as you drift off tonight, imagine yourself wandering those tall grasses, not knowing exactly which Pokemon you'll encounter next, but knowing that each one has its own tale to tell, a tale waiting to be discovered.